reward and gain. So in this situation, fighting Kane was an extremely tough, formidable opponent. The reward would have been the solidification of a #1 spot to fight next for the title. In this situation, I'm fighting for the title itself. So the gains that I've have potential to receive have obviously increased exponentially.
Now also, you have the unique distinction of being able to become one of the first 3-time heavyweight champions. How do you feel about that and encapsulating your career with that?
See, I'm going to be thrown off by the question because I thought you were going to say I was one of the few people with the distinction to be able to put words together that are multi-syllable. I'm very proud of that, and I hope that I continue that way. That's why I hope Dos Santos sees this and make sure that I don't stutter too hard afterwards. If he does, swing for the body a little bit, man. Come on. As far as a 3-time champion, it's one of those things that, like, I never started out my career wanting to be the most winning, heavyweight fighter in the UFC. It's one fight at a time, and this is one title at a time. And going forth, and Saturday is a fight, and I have a Dos Santos in front of me. If on Sunday will be time to sit there and go, hey, you know what, you got this, that, the statistics can be thought of then, and of course it'll be, man, everybody wants to set their mark in in stone, right? This is something that years down I can say that how many other guys are going to say that they're able to acquire the title 3 times.
Well, you can also say that you have the most submissions as a heavyweight. Do you plan to get to the ground in this fight just to have an edge there, your advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. I know I play a lot of mind games with my opponent, but let's face it, he's won all his fights, first-round knockouts, and then decisions, he just outstrikes people. Even when the opportunity presents itself to finish a fight on the ground, I tell people, like with the Carwin fight, he caught him with some great shots. Carwin was hurt on his hands and knees, and Dos Santos made no motion to work jiu-jitsu. You see guys like a Jose Aldo, who's also a phenomenal striker, but when he hurts people and they go down, he'll jump on them and move around and use jiu-jitsu. So it's in his blood, it's still there, and it's a weapon. We haven't seen that at all from Dos Santos, so why would I fight the guy? Well, we all know, I have hours of footage. He's good on his feet. Obviously the fight starts there, but if I can get the fight to the ground, I'm not waving the guy up. If he gets up, he did it on his own accord.
Last thing is, this obviously has a revenge factor for it, being that you've twice finished his mentor, Big Nog, first TKO and then submission. Do you think Junior's at all downplaying the revenge factor involved in this fight?
You know what? I mean, I think it's in his mind. I mean, I can't imagine that it doesn't bother him ever so slightly that he wants to get in there and get a win on me. Reason being that that Nogueira is somebody he obviously has a very close and very strong bond with. I saw that on the primetime like everybody else. But at the same time, even if he beats me, it's kind of hard to really get a win for Nogueira again because, like, okay, you won the fight, but I submitted Nogueira. He would have to go in there and try to play the ground game with me, and I just don't think that's a very, smart solution on his part. I mean, hey, anything can happen. It's an MMA fight, but at the end of the day, I still submitted Nogueira. No matter what happens to me and Junior, it doesn't affect that. So I think he's really more worried about the fact that I want to take away his title. He's been the champ now for a little bit. He knows what it feels like to be that. I don't think he wants to go back.
Frank, how do you feel about the way they portrayed you on the UFC Countdown show, Fight Night show? You came off really well as a family man and as a good father. Like the way they portrayed you?
No, I'm very happy that they actually showed that aspect of my life. I think a lot of times people just focus in on certain areas and they'll form an opinion on me without really knowing who I am. And now you can kind of see that, what I really am like at home. I think a lot of people, there was never that void was never filled, so people just they see how I compete in the octagon, and they, I think, assume how they would act if they were in my shoes. Well, if I was popular and if I could beat people up and if I, had his money or looked as I would act this way. So yeah, he's not. But that's not how I behave, not how I look at it. My most important thing in my life is my children, and if you walk around with cameras around me in my home, you can't avoid it.
Which is the tougher fight, going against JDS or fighting off family and hometown people for tickets?
You know what? We've been doing it long enough now that they know they have to go through my wife, and we figured it all out. And luckily, the people I surround myself with are very loving and caring. They put me first during this time. My wife says it's time for me to have my baby. Like the week a woman's pregnant, ready to deliver. Everything's about her. This is my week, my only week out of the year. The rest of the weeks
you get like 20 of them. So
yeah,
20 minutes. You said something really interesting in the prime time. You've always been a really honest fighter. You've always been quick with the tongue. You've always been very fair to your career and the things you said. You said something really interesting in prime time. You said, I'm tough, he's tough, everyone's tough. And you just kind of gave this look like, not that you were over it, but it was just very matter of fact. What I'm kind of asking is, was there a time and a place when that attitude became prevalent? Can you think back to a certain fight when that kind of clicked for you, or has it always been that way?
No, I mean, right off the bat, I think I've always kind of had that mentality, because you walk in the gym and you see guys, I remember one time, I'm sitting there, someone's talking about Tito, that he was in the gym and someone tapped him. Oh man, so-and-so was destroying him. And the manager of that guy called up Joe Silva. Yo, you got to get my guy in. You know, him and Tito were training, and this was back in 2000 and 2001, you know. And I was sitting there, and Joe's like, it's the gym. You know, and I remember thinking that, I'm like, yeah, you know, when you get to a certain level, everybody's good. In the gym, you see guys that you would never get an autograph from, smashing a guy that you've seen him on a can, an energy drink. You're like, how the heck that? And then the next day, the reverses roles. So I just realized early on that, like, you know, a lot of people put into this, you know, I want to be tough. You know, it's funny because young kids will come to me and be like, hey man, I want you to teach me tough. I'm like, carry a stick. You know, if that's your only purpose in life is to be tough, learning how to fight with your hands is not the most effective way to do it. And so, you know, you got to put down, I mean, what does it really mean to be able to beat somebody up? If I can, well, I'm going to walk into a bar, does it give me a tax break? You know, do I get to go into the HOV lane when only hits me in the car? It doesn't really matter to a lot of people.
And that's kind of where you get to the mental aspect of the game, where the difference between a challenger and a champion can be just a matter of the way you think.
Yeah, confidence. I think putting things in perspective helps me. You know, I realize that, guess what, guys? Sunday, I'm going to get asked the same question no matter what happens on Saturday. Who's next? What's next for you? What's you going to do now? Are you going to retire? Are you going to keep up with the fight? Those are questions that if I'm the champ, they're going to ask me. If I end up not being successful Saturday night, they're going to ask me. Life moves on, and guess what? The next card will happen, and I'll be forgotten. Just like that card will be forgotten the next day. You know, you do your best, you approach life, but you got to realize, you know, you go home, your wife and kids are healthy, they're happy. Everything else is bonus at this point.
Hey, Frank, what do you think Dos Santos' goal was in questioning your manhood after so many victories and fights in the UFC? What was that about?
I think first and foremost, my father's from Cuba. English is a second language. So I understand that there's phrases that don't really carry over when you speak Spanish to English. Now, my dad will sit there and explain to me, he goes, well, son, we have a saying, and really, I'll explain it to you, but it doesn't make sense. And then after a few minutes, I'll be like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. He goes, yeah, but this word doesn't mean what it means to you. All right, so I understand that there's idiosyncrasies in language. And, you know, the guy's Portuguese is much better than my Portuguese, you know, so I understand those losses. And I realize, too, I mean, the guy's a very proficient fighter. He's done very well inside the octagon. I think that he probably has people around him that want to push the fact that, like, look, man, if you want to be the next level up and star, you have to be in the paper more, you have to be talked about. And let's face it, what is this media, what are you guys interested in? You're asking me the question right now. It garnered attention. Was it the best thing he could have done? No, it kind of fell on his face a little bit because it's too easy for me not to even verbally argue back. I can put in the, you know, my career with the accident. I can put in certain fights. Nogueira, his own mentor, for example, I was not doing very well and I came back. That's not hard, I don't know what is. The first Brock fight, I don't know, guys, but I don't think I was winning that fight before the knee bar. I think his hands were getting sore on my face, but I don't know, you know?
Maybe on Mrs. Meter's scorecard, that's about it.
Yeah, you know, the wife was just sitting there going, what the hell are you doing? You know, tie him up! And so, you know, my wife was like, Adrian in the corners, doing one of these numbers, you know? Drago was getting the best of me, but, you know, hey, it happens. But, you know, so for him to make up something that I could sit there and go, well, what about that, and that? It's just kind of like...
Were you surprised that he took that route? He's not known for that at all.
No. I think it's just, like I said, people around him make statements. I mean, there's jiu-jitsu coaches making the statements that he's better jiu-jitsu than I am. The guy has no submissions on record. In fact, he's lost by submissions more than he's won by submissions. But yet, you know, I'm the record holder for the most submissions, but he's better than I am. So certain statements that when you don't have factual statistics to back it up, they just sound silly.
So you just throw that stuff away, you don't even, it doesn't motivate you, it doesn't bother you? Just
no, you know what motivates me is if you would have said something to my cardio. Like, oh, the guy gets tired. Well, guess what? There's a lot of footage of me. You know, so I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it has to hit a button. And when it has no value and, you know, no reality, basis in reality, it's kind of like, you know, I hate his red hair. I'm like, what? But like someone makes fun of I get perms because my hair's curly, you know. I'm like, that's kind of funny. I laugh about it. I mean, my father's from Cuba. I have curly hair, you know. It is, you know.
Last time we got a Brazilian. Now we have another Brazilian. You know that in Brazil we're not so popular.
Yeah, I've got a few emails. It sucks because I really like the buffet, you know, the steakhouses, and I like the beaches. I've been down to Copacabana before, and obviously I love jiu-jitsu, and you know, it comes from there. A couple of my closest friends are Brazilian, and you know. Brazilians are, you know, there's a very small group of Brazilians who are very fanatic about their sports. You look how they treat in the soccer. You know, you have beatings and stabbings in the soccer arenas. You know, so I mean, I can't help it that some of those people are very much nationalistic. They look at it as an American beat a Brazilian. But I think most people that are, you know, I think a lot of Brazilians are, you're coming to my home, my fridge is your fridge. That's the approach they have. So that's how I look at it, you know. I don't think it's the country as a whole. It's just that there's a few of them that are very fanatic, and it seems like the fanatics speak the loudest.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Slide over here, Ryan.